welcome back to Bengal Bites, a podcast about the Cincinnati Bengals from a real, raw, unfiltered perspective. I'm your host, Derek. This is episode 32, Week 15 preview episode, where the Minnesota Vikings come in at 7-6 to take on the Cincinnati Bengals at Paycor Stadium this Saturday at 1 o'clock on NFL Network. Both these teams are 7-6. Bengals are 7-6 after winning the last two games with Jake Browning at quarterback. Vikings are 7-6. They're coming in off a very weird win over the Las Vegas Raiders last week. They won 3-0. They only scored one field goal in that game. Bizarre game, not a lot of offense, obviously. But it's going to be interesting to see how these two teams match up because on paper they seem very even. Bengals are favored by 3 points in this game. They're the home team, so home team gets a little bit of an advantage. We might say if they were playing on a neutral site, these two teams would be fairly even. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. It could go either way. But in this episode, we're going to take a look at some of the storylines to watch in this game, some of the matchups, players and coaches, and all the interesting things that are going to be going into this weekend that we need to watch. If you're brand new to this podcast, go back and check out episode 0 where I explained who I am, why I'm making this podcast, but mostly am a lifelong fan of football, fan of the Bengals. I played football all growing up all the way through college, and I wanted to make a Bengals podcast from a outsider, unbiased, realistic perspective. I'm going to try to do that, give you my own take on things as I see them. In our last episode, episode 31, we did a breakdown and recap of that Week 14 win over the Indianapolis Colts, where the Bengals offense looked amazing. They were putting up all kinds of points. Defense was shutting out the Colts offense, holding them to basically one touchdown in that game. So the Bengals looked like they had really turned a corner, started to improve. Hopefully they're able to continue that success going into this game against the Vikings. But it's a week-to-week league. Nothing is guaranteed just because you had a good week. The previous week doesn't mean it's going to carry over into the next game. It's all about what have you done for me lately. So hopefully the Bengals keep it going against this Vikings team. It's going to be tough. The Vikings, even though their offense didn't look that great last week against the Raiders, their defense looked amazing, where they actually held the Raiders to 0 points. It was a shutout. It was the first shutout that their defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, had called as a defensive coordinator in the NFL. Very impressive defensively for this Minnesota Vikings team, and that's going to be a challenge for the Bengals. But the Bengals are healthy. That's one thing the Bengals have going for them. Outside of Joe Burrow, Bengals offense have all their starters healthy, especially on the offensive line. All 5 offensive linemen have been healthy this entire season. So going into this Week 15 matchup, that's a great plus because Vikings, their starting right tackle is going to be out for this game. And that's going to be a big matchup for Sam Hubbard. That's the side of the line Sam Hubbard's going to line up against. So Sam Hubbard's going to be going up against the backup tackle, probably Dave Quessenberry, 33-year-old veteran, longtime player in the league. So not a rookie or anything, but not their starter. That could be a matchup to watch. Bengals may be able to get some pressure because we know everybody's going to have their eyes on Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson's the Bengals' right defensive end. He got 2 sacks last week. He's been causing all kinds of pressure, forced fumbles, interceptions. Vikings are going to have an eye on him. That's Christian Darrisaw, their left tackle. He's going to be matched up on Trey Hendrickson in this game. So for the Bengals defense, because they have been susceptible to giving up some points. Last week, they had a better performance than against the Colts, but against the Steelers, against the Jaguars, defense was giving up a lot of points for the Bengals. So those linebackers, Jermaine Pratt, Logan Wilson, they're going to have to step up and do a much better job, particularly against the Vikings tight end, TJ Hawkinson. He set the record already for most catches by a tight end in Minnesota Vikings history. So Bengals defense has been having trouble with tight ends. We saw Pat Freiermuth for the Steelers, Evan Ingram for the Jaguars. Tight ends have been having a lot of success against these Bengals linebackers and in their zone coverage. So it's going to be a challenge going up against TJ Hawkinson, who's one of the best in the league. But if we stick on Bengals defense for a moment here, they have been doing a great job of forcing turnovers this season. Bengals are number 2 in the league in terms of turnover differential. Bengals have been forcing a lot of fumbles, getting a lot of interceptions, and their offense, vice versa, has not been giving the ball away. Bengals offense hasn't had, I don't know if they've maybe 2 fumbles the entire season. Very few interceptions. Jake Browning had the pick 6 last week. Obviously, that wasn't good. But for the most part, he got lucky against the Steelers. He didn't have a lot of interceptions. But Joe Burrow didn't really throw that many interceptions. So the Bengals offense has been turning the ball over. Bengals defense has done a good job of getting it away from the other team. So that's probably the best thing I can say about the Bengals defense is forcing turnovers. In terms of stopping teams from scoring points, they, in the red zone, they're pretty good, but running the ball, they've been better as of late. But over the course of this season, Bengals haven't been that great. If the Bengals can stop the Vikings running attack, that will be good. They were going to have an advantage perhaps in this game because the Vikings are missing their starting tailback, Alexander Mattison. Vikings are going to have a backup running back in there. They will have their starting wide receiver in Justin Jefferson. He went out of last week's game against the Raiders with a back injury. They had to take Justin Jefferson to the hospital to get him checked out for a chest injury. He's going to be able to play in this game. Justin Jefferson is one of the top wide receivers in the league. This year, he's missed a lot of games due to a hamstring injury, so he may not make Pro Bowl and All-Pro like he has in all of his previous seasons, but prior to this year where he missed so many games with injury, he was one of the top wide receivers in the league. He had even more yards and catches than Jamar Chase did for the Bengals last year. And these two were college teammates at LSU with Joe Burrow. When the LSU Tigers won their national championship in college, Joe Burrow was throwing to Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall Jr. and a bunch of other guys, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Thaddeus Moss, but primarily Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. So that's going to be a big matchup, kind of a rivalry between these two big-time wide receivers. Jamar, he wants to insist that he's the best. He's been the best since college. So they've had kind of a friendly rivalry going back and forth between the two of them about who is the better wide receiver. Jamar will always insist that he's the best. And I don't know if there's maybe some bad blood or a little bit of animosity between the two because they were interviewing Jamar and they asked him about Justin. And he was kind of saying like, I haven't really talked to Justin on the phone lately. If Justin sees this interview, tell him to call me. So it sounds like they're not really on speaking terms for whatever reason. Maybe that's just during the season. They don't want to talk to each other because they're competitors. But being former college teammates and former wide receivers, you'd think they want to get on the same page, at least for Jamar's sake in terms of finding out how he's going about the contract negotiations. That both of them are going to kind of set the market in terms of wide receivers, who's getting paid at the top of the market for wide receivers. So maybe there's a little bit of a competition between those two about who can get paid the most or who's got the best stats, all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be interesting. Hopefully, Jamar Chase comes out on top in this game. We want to see Jamar have a great game because he had a little bit of a quiet game against the Colts last week. Only a few catches, handful of targets. Not really what we expect to see out of Jamar Chase. So he's probably going to be looking to have a big game against his old college teammate. But even beyond the players having rivalries in this game, the coaches have a little bit of a rivalry in this game too, because both these head coaches, Zach Taylor and Kevin O'Connell, were assistant coaches for the Los Angeles Rams when they won the Super Bowl. Kevin O'Connell, I think it took him a year or two longer than Zach Taylor to get hired as a head coach out of there, but it's so weird how they're very similar. Just when you listen to them speak in their press conferences, they sound the same. They kind of look the same. They have the same mannerisms. Kevin O'Connell is just kind of a bigger version of Zach Taylor. He's much bigger, a larger man. He played quarterback in the NFL. Zach Taylor didn't even get like a sniff at a practice squad in the NFL. I think he put like maybe one season in the CFL was all Zach Taylor had in him. But yeah, physically, Kevin O'Connell is a much bigger, more imposing guy. But like just when you look at him, they could basically be the same guy, just from a coaching standpoint. Anything you hear from these guys is just total coach speak, nothing really of any substance. I forget everything that both of these guys say as soon as they say anything. But I would say probably Kevin O'Connell has a little bit more personality than Zach Taylor. But either way, they're very similar in they're offensive-minded head coach. They call the offensive plays. They're kind of the de facto offensive coordinators for both of their teams, but an interesting rivalry in that they both worked for the same head coach, and Sean McVay out in Los Angeles came from the same coaching tree or whatever. So they have some history. They know each other. They go again, but I don't think they've coached against each other before. The Vikings in general don't have a long history against the Cincinnati Bengals. The teams have only played each other 14 times, and the series is tied at 7-7 each. The last time they faced was in week 1 of the 2021 season. That was Jamar Chase's first game, and it went all the way to overtime. Bengals ended up winning that game miraculously with an Evan McPherson field goal. One of the other semi-coaching rivalries, you could say, in this game is Zach Taylor against Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for the Vikings. They went head-to-head a few seasons ago when Brian Flores was the head coach for the Miami Dolphins. That was, I think that was Flores' last season, where the reason they had some kind of a bad blood or something was because they had a little bit of a scuffle. Two teams got almost into a fight on the sidelines because Mike Thomas, the Bengals backup wide receiver, was covering punts. He went down there and blew up the Dolphins return man even when he wasn't even looking. So the Dolphins got all upset and started running on the field and fighting all the Bengals players, and they got into it. And Brian Flores, the coach, ran all the way across the field and was pointing and yelling at players. And it wasn't typically what you see out of a head coach. Obviously, Zach Taylor wasn't running anywhere. Zach Taylor knows NFL field is not the place for him. So he stayed his ass on the sidelines where he's belonged. But they have been talking about how there was a little bit of a dust up between these two coaches, but obviously Zach Taylor downplayed it. Every time there's any kind of controversy, Zach Taylor acts like he has no idea what anybody's talking about, never heard of any controversy. So you're not going to get any kind of excitement out of Zach Taylor. The only thing Zach Taylor said exciting coming into this game was he said the fans should drink one more drink before they head into the stadium and be loud and make it hard for the Vikings offense to operate because, the crowd noise is so important. I mean, yeah, but it's like week 15. The Vikings have a winning record on the road. So I don't think going into the quote unquote hostile environment of an away stadium is going to hurt them that much. But it can't, if you want to go and get drunk and go to the stadium, hey, knock yourself out. In terms of supporting the team, it sounds like the Bengals are going to wear all black uniforms except for the helmet. It's going to be black jerseys, black pants, black socks, orange helmet. Pretty cool look, even though it's going to be in the middle of the day. I think when you do the all black, it's a little bit cooler when it's nighttime. So, it's all dark and everything's black. But whatever, they're going to be wearing their all black. So some fans are trying to organize a unofficial blackout, which doesn't make any sense. Wear whatever you want, drink whatever you want. Who cares? Just go to the game and have fun. But this game is going to be extremely critical for the Bengals in terms of their playoff life because they are tied with a bunch of other teams. There's 6 teams in the AFC that are 7-6, basically the exact same record as the Bengals. There's a bunch of tiebreakers and different scenarios that you can waste a bunch of time on at the New York Times simulator, running through 50 quintillion possibilities of what could happen and blah, blah, blah. But who cares? Just watch the games and find out what happens. It doesn't matter about all these simulations because none of them matter. They're not based on any reality. So the only reality that you and I as fans need to worry about is Saturday at 1 o'clock, what's going to happen. And Nick Mullins is starting at quarterback for the Vikings instead of Kirk Cousins or Josh Dobbs or anybody that would be exciting. It's going to be a battle of another backup quarterback. Nick Mullins at quarterback for the Vikings against Jake Browning for the Bengals. Both these teams lost their starting quarterback. Kirk Cousins went out about 5 weeks ago with a torn Achilles tendon for the Vikings, and they've been trying to find their way ever since. I think they're 3-2 since then. Not bad, staying in it. And they're actually at the top of the NFC North just because the NFC is so much weaker than the AFC this year. The Vikings are in the playoff picture at 7-6, whereas the Bengals are kind of just on the outside. But both these teams could go either way. If they go on a win streak or a lose streak, both of these teams could, their season could hang in the balance. The biggest thing that jumped out to me watching the Vikings game, aside from the lack of offense last week, and most of that was just kind of a uncoordination. The blocking schemes by the Vikings were not working at all against the Raiders. They're giving up a lot of pressure on Josh Dobbs. But Josh Dobbs, the quarterback of the Vikings, did not look good at all. He was holding on to the ball for way too long, not making the throws that he needed to make. and the Vikings receivers were dropping a lot of passes. KJ Osborne, I think, dropped 3 passes for the Vikings in this game alone. He was dropping lots of passes. They had Justin Jefferson go out, like I mentioned, before halftime. So not a lot of things were going well for the Vikings in this game. On top of the fact that the Friday before last week's game, the Vikings offensive coordinator was arrested for DUI. So basically 2 days before the game, he got pulled over for DUI. He didn't, it wasn't like a horrible, he didn't get into any kind of accident, hurt anyone. I don't know what the details were, but it sounded like he was just barely over the legal limit in terms of blood alcohol content. But still, you shouldn't be driving at all after you've been drinking. So the fact that, whether he was twice the limit or just barely over the limit, doesn't matter. The fact that he was drinking and driving isn't good. That may have contributed to the fact that the Vikings offense didn't have a lot of success because, obviously he could still go to the game and coach in the game, but getting arrested, naturally, your attention is going to be focusing on your legal matters and whether or not you're still going to be employed with the team. That's going to take away some of your attention from getting prepared for the game. So this week, that could have almost the opposite effect against the Bengals. This is kind of the thing where I was worried about with the Steelers, where the Steelers fired their offensive coordinator, and then next week they had an offensive explosion where the new coach came in. I'm worried that the Vikings, the offensive coordinator just got arrested last week, so he's kind of he lost his way a little bit last week. But this week, it's okay, I am coaching for my job. I just got arrested last week. I got to have the best offensive game plan this team has ever seen so they don't fire me. So the Bengals got to be on their toes. This guy is a caged animal on offensive coordinator. But I know Coach Lou, he's going to be ready. He's going to be ready for the Vikings offense. Whatever they throw at the Bengals defense, they're going to be able to shut them down like they have been. DJ Reader, BJ Hill, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard, the core 4 up front, they've been doing an amazing job for this Bengals defense. And the defensive line for the Vikings is not too shabby either. When I watch the Vikings on defense, that's probably the first thing that stands out is their defensive line. They are big, massive human beings up front, especially inside. Number 90, number 97, number 99, all those guys for the Vikings. But the one player who especially stood out on defense for the Vikings last week was number 40, their middle linebacker, Ivan Pace Jr. I think he had 13 tackles, interception, and he did a backflip on the field after he got the interception last week. So Ivan Pace Jr., he's a great story because he was an undrafted rookie, made it onto the Vikings roster, and has been playing and contributing and just growing and getting better and better. So all his teammates are talking about Ivan Pace Jr. As a Bengals fan, when the Bengals have the ball on offense, expect to hear number 40, Ivan Pace Jr., being called a lot in terms of making tackles. Hopefully, Chase Brown and Joe Mixon are able to get away from him and break his tackles. But that's going to be an interesting matchup to see how he plays against our Bengals running backs, who have been playing much more dynamically and explosively as of recently. But it's definitely going to be a tough matchup. It's going to be a challenge playing these Vikings. But this is what they play for. Like Zach Taylor was making the analogy about first 4 games or the first quarter of the season. It made more sense when there were 16-game seasons. Now there's 17 games in the season, so it's kind of an odd number. But hey, there's 4 games left. Let's call this the fourth quarter of the season, all right? 4 games left. Let's see if the Bengals can win the fourth quarter and maybe get into the playoffs. But anything can happen. You just got to take it one game at a time because you never know when something crazy could happen. I'm recording this on Thursday night, right after Thursday Night Football happened, and the Vikings in their previous game played the Las Vegas Raiders, and they won 3-0 in Las Vegas. Then tonight, Thursday night, the Raiders played the Los Angeles Chargers, and they won 63-21 in a game where the Raiders were ahead 42-0 at halftime. Crazy game, but that was one of those games where it got out of control because of turnovers. Chargers gave up 3 fumbles in that game, and they had a pick 6. It was just a ridiculous game. Brandon Staley, the head coach of the Chargers, after the game was everything that could go wrong did go wrong in that game. It's just one of those games where just everything possibly that could go wrong went wrong. everybody's has one of those games. And they were like asking him like, why should you be the head coach anymore? Like, why are we still employing you? Why are we even asking you questions right now? He was like, oh, well, yeah, of course I'm going to be the head coach. Until they tell me otherwise, those guys in the locker room have confidence in me, and those guys like me, and I'm going to be the coach just you see. It's like, man, I don't know. Maybe he'll be the coach tomorrow, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 24 hours the Los Angeles Chargers are looking for a new head coach, because that was embarrassing. Can't be doing that stuff on national TV. But we'll find out what happens with the Chargers coaching situation after this weekend. I'm sure there'll be more to talk about in that, and with many other games coming up this weekend. So that's one of the other things that's cool about having the game on Saturday afternoon is it's going to be the only game on at that time. It's going to be a standalone game right in the middle of the day. It's going to be a triple header on NFL Network Saturday. A bunch of good games to watch on Saturday all day. And then we get to have a nice Sunday where all the games are going to be on all Sunday, and we get to watch them without having to worry about the Bengals game, flipping back and forth. But, what's going on with the Bengals game? What's going on with the other games? We can just enjoy NFL Red Zone and get 7 hours of commercial-free football all day. So that'll be great. Enjoy the games this weekend. And then we'll come back and do a recap after the game, hopefully recapping another Bengals victory. So come back for the next episode. But leave a comment down in the show below. Let me know what you think the score for this game is going to be, who you think is going to be the MVP for the game, all that type of stuff. Or you just leave me a comment in general so I know you're listening, huh? All right, so until next time, I'll leave you with a hoo day and stay hungry for more Bengal Bites.